I've got a particularly interesting Meet the Owner today for a couple of reasons. I'm with Chris and John, and what's interesting about this is firstly they've got a Princess V39, which is a boat very high on my one-day list, and secondly this is the first Meet the Owner we've done where it's a shared ownership, and so it's been really interesting to find out how that works for them and talk a little bit about how that helps the economies of scale. So I'll introduce you. This is John over here on the left and Chris over here on the right. Hi guys.
Welcome Nick, welcome to Exmouth.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Nice of you to come up today. Nice glorious weather in October.
Absolutely.
We've had a good day for it.
We have actually, yeah. It's nice and calm, isn't it, which makes a change.
Perfect.
And this is your boat behind you here, which is, as I just mentioned, the Princess V39. And as I also mentioned, this is very high on my if I had the money. I think this is a brilliant boat. And I have to say as well, I like the colour of this one. I like the very, very dark blue. In fact, I thought it was black when I first saw it, but it's a really nice colour.
It's a close blue, but it does look black when you see it from a distance. But it's we've had blue boats before. We do like the distinction that a blue hull gives to an all white boat, which can just sort of blend a little bit, but the blue is fantastic. But it does need, you know, careful care and attention and a great deal of polish to keep it looking as good as it wants to.
And washing off after an extended trip.
I can imagine, because the salt must really show up on that.
It does indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see it looks good from a distance, but up close you always think, not quite as good as it could be. But
yeah, it's like a black car, isn't it? It shows every mark.
Yeah, it's absolutely like that. But we do our best to keep it looking shiny, and so far so good. So,
brilliant. Okay, well maybe if you guys can show us around the boat first of all, and then we'll have a sit down and have a chat about your boating history and also how the shared ownership works, because I think that's really an interesting facet to this.
Yes, indeed. It's certainly a different way that not everyone can achieve, but we've tried hard to do it well. And so, standard V39 layout. This is a 2015 model, which we bought 3 years ago, I think it was, 3 or so years ago.
December 18.
December 18 we acquired her. We were looking at her for 6 months before we actually agreed to buy her, and we spent some time looking at V39s because our previous boat was a Windy Grand Mistral 37.
Oh, that's a nice boat, yeah.
Very similar kind of configuration. We'd gone for the hard-top sports cruiser as our ideal boating boat down here. And what attracted us to this boat was just the extra bit of volume that it's got over the Grand Mistral,
really, isn't it?
And the cockpit is just a really sociable cockpit. You can take covers off, you've got the sliding roof, you've got a lot of things in this boat that makes it a really usable boat for good long weekends or extended cruising if that's what you want to do. So
and we've done both.
And we have done both. We try and do both, but not together. Our own families do it with us. But this is the first weekend I think that John and I are actually going to use the boat jointly. So that's a good shout.
Brilliant.
But by and large, you know, the choice of boat was sort of self-made. It has all the usual features that you've probably featured on other V39s. You know, we've got the outdoor sink and barbecue. We've got the drinks fridge. Plenty of storage under here, easy access to the engine without moving cushions and getting everyone to move around. You can easily lift the hatch, get in, do what you got to do, get back out again, very easy. Plenty of other storage, and this one had the single leg table with a fold out. Some of the other ones got the fixed double table.
Yep.
And what also made this boat the more attractive is the later versions had an extended backseat platform, sunbathing platform. I know exactly what you mean, yes. The tender goes under it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we felt that we sometimes keep the tender in the locker folded up with the engine.
Right.
But with that extra extension, you really are down on your hands and knees trying to get out, whereas this one we felt was easier access to that, and it gave the back platform a much easier way of keeping the dinghy on and off. So lots of little things that we sort of looked at and thought, oh, that'll do us, and we settled on this one. Blue hull. Age was just right, not many hours,
good cockpit size,
and everything was really smart on it. You know, it had been well looked after, or hardly been used before, so we were really attracted to that kind of notion of buying this boat over and above some others that came back from south of France. Or
I think she only had a couple of 100 hours on her when we bought her.
Right.
So
wow.
That's, you know, when she was sort of 3 years old or so. So she was under the sort of what you would expect hours wise. So
it's a good way to buy them actually, isn't it? Because somebody else has taken the initial depreciation, but you've got sort of still what 95% of the life of the boat to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it was it was a very conscious decision, and part of my thinking was we were getting to an age where our previous boat was 15 years old,
Yes.
coming up to 15 years old.
Yeah.
And you can. There's nothing wrong with it, but you can tell it's 15 years old. Electronics, engines, all those sort of things.
Yeah.
If we were to buy a new boat, let's go as new as we possibly can,
Yeah.
without going completely mad, and a boat with low hours. But the electronics on this boat, the lighting, all the LED, everything is just up to date, which will see us through for 10 years if that's what we choose to do with this boat. And we felt it had a good life in it, and so far so good. You know, we've had great fun with it. So.
Brilliant. Let's have a look inside if we may, and then perhaps you can give us a quick talk through of how that works out for you.
So this is Michelle's mine cabin. And historically in our boating sharing boats, we've always had the mid cabin or aft cabin, and so this for us it works really well. We've got all the various lockers, first aid, and we've got some bunding when it's, you know, the jubilees and things.
Yeah, the regatta.
And we've got main locker at the back here.
Oh, okay, it's a good size.
Yeah, and we keep the vacuum cleaner already plugged in, ready for use.
Brilliant.
With a 240 volt plug there.
Yep.
TV if we need one.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It's got a decent sized bed in there as well, isn't it? Because these are normally 2 singles, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Explain the owner's modification.
Oh, well, I went through the owners. Yeah. Well, what we did, we did it ourselves, and we made 3 of these wooden bases, and bought some memory foam mattress, had some sheets made, and given us a permanent berth.
That's a really good idea.
The singles are
really
2
well.
for an adult. The singles are
2'6".
2 singly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But as a big double, we didn't have this boat didn't have the sliding bunks, so we sort of create that so we can turn it back to 2 singles very easily by taking the panels out. They store in the drawer underneath, and the mattress will go in the wardrobe there, and
They're kept in place with just some Velcro.
Right.
Because once the mattress is on board and it's resting between the 2 other mattresses, it doesn't move at any rate.
Yeah.
So it's it
just
works well.
little Velcro tabs sort it out. So.
And you get a bigger double bed than you would have if you had the
Yes,
sliding bed, don't you?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that John, wanted to have his luxury cabin back here with his inbuilt sofa and his view outside with his
chaise longue.
Yeah, chaise longue, exactly. So your cabin is at the front.
And we've always ended up in the bow cabin. But
Okay.
I don't know. We don't know why this is really, but it's one of those things. But this is the ensuite cabin, if you like. It has access to the bathroom as well as to the obviously to the saloon.
Yeah.
The Windy was the other way. The aft cabin had access to the bathroom, so John had the ensuite on the last boat.
Fair enough.
We've got the ensuite on this boat, but this is a fantastic cabin. My wife does suffer a little bit from claustrophobia, hence in our earlier boats when we had like those real cuddies under the cockpit, which are a bit kind of claustrophobic, then we always end up not sleeping in them and sleeping in the saloon or whatever. But this is ideal. Plenty of storage, mirrors, hatches, the lighting,
volume.
Another TV. Got more TVs in the boat than we have at home. So, not that we'd end up using the TVs much. I mean, I don't know whether when you go boating, you never really sort of think about TVs, do you?
I fitted one to my boat when I got it, and I've never ever used it. Well, that's not quite true. We when we first got it, we thought, right, we're going to use the tanning. We're going to, and we went down there and sort of, and a couple of times, me and my friend went and watched a film on it. But it was kind of deliberate, if you know what I mean. And I don't think that TV's even been switched on for 2 years.
We sometimes get a bit of news if we're at Dartmouth or something. You just see, if you're there for a few days, you might just sort of want to know what's going on.
Or the Grand Prix or something like that.
Of course,
yeah. So there's a lot you might do, but it is. But that's how it's worked out, and we haven't fallen out about it really. I mean, I think if one of us is using the boat with our family or other things, then we just remove the bedding, roll it up, stick it in the cupboard, and the bedding can sort of rotate, but it saves us having to take the bedding off all the time and continually changing everything. But so we sort of keep the cabins that we have and work it out with our families as to who's going to do what, and we just notify each other that we've got people coming on the boat, just remove the bedding and go from there. So
brilliant.
It works really well. And this is obviously the fantastic the fantastic bathroom in a boat of this size with a completely separate and waterproof shower. There's no spray or any of this. It's all in there, and it's fantastic hot water, good pressure, and it's just lovely. At the end of particularly when we did our long cruises, you know, to have a nice hot shower before you go to bed is just glorious.
It's luxury, isn't it? It's luxury boating.
It's absolutely luxury, and we're not used to it at all because we've never had it in any other boat. So
that shower's got more pressure than my shower at home.
Really? That's fantastic.
We've got electric loo on this one, which is sort of good. It's a freshwater loo, but of course it does get through the blooming water pretty quick when you're on board. You know?
Yeah, I can imagine.
A lot of water goes through that loo, which you think, you know, if we could just pump it in, it would be a bit easier. But but it's fresh water. There's none of that smell you get from a seawater loo in the autumn.
I know exactly what you mean.
That telltale.
Yeah, and you have to explain to people that it's not what you think it is.
Absolutely right. And out here, the saloon, the table drops, and we've had we've had 6 of us sleeping on board with friends and so on. So table drops, you know, it's tended to quite a nice double berth and so on. So that works well.
The spare cushions are kept in the back locker.
Yeah.
So that works really well. And again, it's a great area just to sit if you do want to just chill out, watch telly, drink your gin and tonics, or your whiskies or your brandies, or whatever. It's a nice place because we got this fantastic drinks cabinet on this boat, which is
look at that.
You know,
it's proper luxury living, this, isn't it?
Look, it's actually glass. You know.
Yeah.
So, your drinks taste twice as nice in a glass as they do with a plastic cup. So. We do all that, and we try and sort of look after things. And this is a little improvement we made. We keep lots of things on this little thing, and it didn't have anything to stop anything sliding off when you're going along. So I bought some bits, stainless steel bits, and we made up this.
That's a really good idea.
Now, which Princess should actually do, because it's a proper little thing to stop everything sliding off. You know,
it's the sort of job you can only do once.
Yeah.
You have to get it right.
Yeah. For sure.
But this is only like stuff you see in a pub, you know, where they have the stuff that goes around where the glasses are held. So it's quite straightforward to do, but it was a bit of a fiddle, but it was a worthwhile thing, and we quite like it because it looks properly finished.
It does. I hadn't realised when I came down. John mentioned it to me earlier, and I hadn't realised that wasn't original. So which is the important thing.
Little things that we're very kind of. We like to get it properly used, and you know what boats are like. You know, they're designed by someone who's never actually tried to live on a boat for a weekend. And you know what it is, don't you?
All those for sure. Hanging things and the kitchen towel hanger and little things.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you do much cooking on board? You've also got quite a decent sized galley here.
We do. But we don't. We haven't done like a full roaster or anything like that. But we'll do like chili con carne or that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we do what we do. If we're going away for a few nights, then we'll have a couple of nights cooking on board and then a couple of nights out somewhere.
Yes.
So we'll just sort of mix and match, really.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense totally.
And with the barbecue, steaks and salad.
Yeah.
What's not to like about that when you're sitting at Dartmouth looking out at the water, the sun goes down? I mean, that's as good as it gets.
Completely.
It's very simple, doesn't need much. The oven and the microwave, you can heat up a ready meal, or you can buy rice in a bag now. It takes 2 minutes to heat up, and you can have rice and chili, or that sort of thing, which is really easy to do.
And this was a bit of a seller as well to us, wasn't it? Having a decent sized fridge.
Decent sized fridge, yeah. Good fridge with a good ice compartment in it, and works well. Dual voltage. Although to be fair, like all boats, everything is crammed into them, and fridges need a bit of air, and of course in a boat there's not a lot of air, so we had a few sort of issues of trying to sort of work out how to solve those problems, which we've done with a couple of little vents.
That's cunning.
And we did also for the microwave and oven. We sort of put some vents in to get, because again, these things just get hot.
The back.
Otherwise, we've tried to keep it clean. We've got a holding tank on board, which is good. So again, you don't feel too guilty on the River Dart and things like that.
No, absolutely. And I noticed you've got a generator on this one.
We do have a generator.
Yeah, that's very nice.
4.5 kilowatt generator, which pumps out enough to do kettles, toaster, hot water, charge the batteries, and also this time of year run a fan heater if you want to just take the charge without using the full diesel heater, as it were. It's a horses for course as to how much heat you really want, but
but it means if you're, like you say, on the River Dart, you can run that grill out in the cockpit. Presumably that runs from the generator, I would imagine.
Or if you're plugged in. But yes, going to my favourite place is Dittisham. It is the place to go. Pick up a mooring board on a Friday evening. Have a meal on board, go to the ferry boat for a couple of pints, come back for it. In the morning, you've got that Well, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
It's just that area that you think, oh, what's better than this? Where
Completely.
would you go? Where would you go?
My favourite time of using the generator was when we were doing a trip from Exmouth to Guernsey, and we stopped by the Channel Light vessel, switched off, started up the generator, made up a pot of percolated coffee here, just drifted for about 10 or 15 minutes. Having done that, cleared up, put things away, start up, and then on our way down to St Peter Port, and it was like flat calm.
Brilliant.
That was my memorable.
Your memorable generator.
This could be a new segment, I think, to meet the owner. So tell us about your memorable generator experience. That's fantastic.
Last year we went away in October and it was bloody freezing. So it was good to have the generator so you could have the fan heater and things like that. But,
absolutely.
But, we've tried to sort of look after it. I say we didn't, we haven't changed anything particularly on the boat apart from.
When you say do we eat on board? Well, we do, because that's what we're having tonight.
Oh, look at that fish pie.
Fish pie made locally in the fishmongers here in Exmouth.
Fantastic.
Fish pie, frozen peas.
Perfect. So, shall we go up into the cockpit and have a chat about, because I'm really interested to hear about your shared ownership experience, because as I say, I haven't actually kind of come across that before.
I'll come up here.
Or at least not in terms of an interview, at least. So, how, first of all, did that come about, I suppose, is the first question. How did you get into that shared experience, as it were?
I think it all started, let's just sort of go back as far as we dare. It all started when we were doing a delivery trip on a X412 from the Saloon down to Dartmouth for a mutual friend of ours.
Oh, okay.
And we were on the dog watch, which is like from 3 in the morning till 7.
Right, and this is a sailing boat,
just
to be clear,
we got talking and we ended up...
Well, should we just say we'd never met each other before?
We hadn't really met each other before.
Okay.
That's fine. So we ended up sort of talking about, where have you come from, what do you do, and all these sorts of things. It came about that we both went to the same school, not the same class or year.
Right.
We both went to the same polytechnic, and we both lived at that time within about 4 miles of each other.
Oh, okay.
Which we didn't know.
Yeah.
But we did through the mutual, through the one guy who knew us both.
Yeah.
We didn't know each other. So,
Understood.
So at that time I had a little Fletcher sports cruiser with a little Mercury 2-stroke 115 on the back, and then Chris had his Sunseeker Portofino 25, and used to do little trips, but it was very much a day cuddy type of boat like mine was. So I think that the longest trip I did in the Fletcher was down to Brixham, but it was a petrol outboard motor, so I had to carry a load of cans which you wouldn't want to do in order to get back.
Yeah, and those 2-strokes are pretty thirsty as well, aren't they?
And Brixham don't sell petrol. And,
no.
So you have to be aware of that. And then we because we bought more our boats just at the far end here, and we just got talking about boats and what we're going to do, and the desire to get a larger boat. And
like everybody does, you always on to the next. When you've got a boat, you always think about the next boat, aren't you? As soon as you start with one boat, you're on to the next one, but it takes you 5 years or 10 years or whatever to get there.
And I think we've both seen how we look after our boats and deal with maintenance issues on the boat. So when we decided to join forces and buy a boat and share, we pretty much knew that we share the same ethos in keeping the boat right and dealing with the maintenance when maintenance is needed. And I think that was the key thing, and not having to have a big issue if something needs doing.
Yeah.
And it's remained the case.
And we've done, the first boat we bought was a Sunseeker Portofino 32, so an open boat in the sense of it's a sports boat with a sleeping arrangement that was, well, basic, I think is how it was. It was a 1994 boat. No, 93 boat. So quite an old boat when we bought it. It had done some miles. I think it had done some things. There's quite a few things that sort of went wrong on it that we probably should have known about before we bought it, but
hey-ho.
Easy with hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah, you decide on a Portofino 32, because my little Portofino 25 is a really good little sea boat.
Yeah.
And to be fair, they are very good boats.
Yeah.
And so John and I sort of talked about doing this. I said before that we kept a ski boat, or I kept my ski boat, so we always had if one of us wanted to use one boat, we always had another boat to use, so we shared both boats effectively.
You didn't feel grounded. That's
right. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
you know,
So you kept hold of the 25 as well.
No, I got rid of that, but I kept I had a Glastron 18-foot Glastron.
Okay.
From a James Bond Live and Let Die era.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
One of those absolute classic Glastrons, and and had a 135 two-stroke on it. It went like stink, and you could mono off a penny on it.
Right.
One of those, you know.
Yeah.
And so we sort of kept, because the problem with boating is when it's really nice, you want to use your boat, but if you share a boat, you've got to accept that you're not sharing it when the other guy's got it when it's really nice. When it's your weekend, the next weekend is blowing old boots, and it's not a pleasant experience. So by keeping both boats, the River Exe is a great river for mucking about on it. So if you ever wanted to go boating in a nice sunny day, which is the one day or the one weekend a year or whatever it is,
it's just being out on the water.
You
had
still got
two options. Yeah. So we've always, and that's continued. We've always kept two boats.
Right.
So we have a little Bayliner ski boat that we keep next door to this one, which allows us both to muck about and go to Turf Lock, go to the River Exe Cafe, go skiing. Well, the other one's got the other boat if it's a nice weekend, so that's how.
Or clean it.
Or clean it. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we sort of did that. So we kept the Portofino for about 5 years, but we had to do a lot of work on it to keep it going.
Yeah.
It had some Yamaha engines in, which had very nice outdrives, but the engines were pretty rubbish, and every spare part was an iron and water.
Yes.
Right.
So
yes.
everything was expensive.
Yeah.
And we sort of realised that it wasn't quite the boat, and the game changer was I took the boat to Plymouth one weekend with my wife and my son, and we were coming back, and it started to blow a bit of an easterly, and coming across Bigbury Bay, it was just sodden.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it was horrible, really.
Yeah.
And because of the canvas covers rattling around and shaking, and you can't see anything out of them, and the whole thing was just a sort of a God, this is a nightmare, isn't it? You know, we're not enjoying our boating like this.
Because the bow sort of raked forward, raked down as at the bow. So you know, when you did take
it was
away,
just wet.
It just threw it up onto the windscreen, and it was just.
But we got as far as Torquay, and I said, right, we're going to Torquay, tie up for 5 minutes, have a cup of tea, take a rest, let's just regroup before we got back to Exmouth. My wife said she was going to have a little snooze, and so I went around Torquay Marina with my son, and we came across this windy 37 Grand Mistral. And I said to him, that's what we need, a boat with a hard top and wipers, because you know, this is what we've just experienced. This would be the perfect boat. A little bit bigger all over, a little bit more volume, a little bit longer, a little bit wider. And I said to them, that's what we should have. And my wife and I had seen one at the boat show when they first came out, and I did say to them, this is just a lovely, lovely boat. I mean, it's really well done, really well kitted out. Everything about it was to die for as a boat of that size. So I then sort of thought about it a bit, and I came back and I said to John, I'd seen this boat at Torquay, and we should think about upgrading boats at some point.
My heart missed a beat.
So nothing happened on, but there's Tom at Torquay.
Very well.
Tom,
yes.
Is it Tom Wills?
Tom Wills. It is Tom Wills.
It is Tom Wills. So good shout out to Tom Wills. And I bumped into him and we were chatting about it. He said, well, he thought that the owner wanted to sell this Windy, but he wasn't sure. So well, if he does, just let me know and we can have a chat about it. And about 2 or 3 months later, he rings me up and he says, I think I've got notification that the guy does want to sell it. Are you still interested? So then I went properly to John and said, John, we've got to go and look at this boat because I think it's the boat we should have.
Time.
So we went down there one evening to have a look at it, saw Tom, had a good look around, went back and had a meal somewhere at some dodgy pub at King's Quay as well. And discussed the pros and cons of spending significantly more on a boat, whether we would convince our partners that that was a really good use of the family money. And it went from there really, and we sort of decided that yes, we would do it. The first thing was we then had to sell this Sunseeker, so we gave her a good polish up. We said to Tom, look, get it on the market, and we had a call from a guy that wanted to see it. He was down in Dartmouth one bank holiday. I said, look, I'll take the boat to Dartmouth and he can have a quick look at it and decide whether he wants it or doesn't want it. He came aboard, we polished it from the inch of its life, it looked fantastic and shiny.
But the day was really good as well.
Got all the kids off, got the wife off. And he came and said yes, he would buy it. We agreed a sale, and we said at the same time that he was going to keep it on the Hamble, wasn't he, I think? And we said to him, look, we'll bring it to the Hamble for you, which John's theory, which is a very good one, is to say that, you know, we trust our boat, so we'll deliver it for you.
Of course,
you know?
yeah.
And we did trust it, and so we set off one morning from here, went to Weymouth. He got the train down to Weymouth. We met him at Weymouth. We went for breakfast. He played with it, had a look at his boat. We then drove it out of Weymouth up to the Hamble, and he took over, sort of going through the Isle of Wight, and oh, we've never seen it since, have we?
No, he took us out for lunch, got us our train tickets, and we came home, and I think he was going to take her to Sunseeker in Poole to have her completely, you know, contemporised.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen her on the Hamble, so I've been up and down a few times.
But what happened after that? Of course, we then bought the Windy. We kept the Windy for, it was a 2010 boat, I think it was.
Right.
So it
2008
was, no, sorry, 2008. Sorry, yes. Oh, 2004. Oh, whatever. Whatever she was. She was a very nice boat, blue hulled, twin 6-cylinder engines in it, outdrives, very well looked after, hardly been used, and we thought, yeah, that'll suit us. So then, having invested a great deal more in a boat, we then had to really take seriously our kind of relationship about, you know, we're now having to put more money in. So we'd already decided to set up, you know, a separate bank account that we both put every month. We both put money in.
Account.
Right.
And
so that it works that way. We both have access to the account. We both have a card. So if anything needs buying for the boat, any one of us can do it.
Yeah.
We trust each other enough to know that we'll have a conversation before we go and do something. But by and large, it's to get things sorted and make sure the boats are in, you know, in good order.
Yeah.
And we had to obviously up the income, up the contribution to the account each month to pay for a Windy. But by and large, you know, that arrangement of having one bank account, having a very similar ethos as to what we're doing with the boat and why we're having a boat and what we want to do with it, and being interested in keeping it as a hobby, but also, you know, looked after as well. And it's worked for both of us brilliantly, and so much so that, you know, when we came to this boat, you know, we were more than comfortable to put even more money into a significant more into the boat, and have what we think is a really nice boat, and you know, I don't know really, we've not really had any kind of debates, but we do hear so many stories of people that can't get along with the idea that they're sharing a boat.
And, that's the thing, isn't it? I think it either really works or it really doesn't.
Well, I think that's probably right.
I like if you've got something on the boat, it's got to work.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking around and I see a bulb that's gone, that'll bug me until I get it fixed.
Yeah.
Because, you know, all the electrics has got to work on the boat, which it does.
Yeah.
And
so
we'll either repair it ourselves, or, you know, we have to, you know, bind, you know, expertise. But everything, touch wood, you know, works.
Well, our skill set is that John is very much above deck, and I'm very much below deck. So I do all the technical stuff, and John does all the kind of the
janitorial.
not quite like that, but the idea is, you know, I'm more mechanically savvy and can turn my hand to doing quite a lot of what I call more difficult stuff. Not that there's a limit to that, and John's very much sort of keeping on top of all the other things. So he'll say it's gone wrong, so I have to then work out
quality control.
I have to work out how we're going to fix it, you know.
Yeah.
So and sometimes we do it ourselves. Like, for instance, last year we lost a spring clip on our roof here.
Right.
So when we're halfway back, it all jams up and the wires will all come off.
Oh,
and
no.
It's just a blooming nightmare.
Yeah.
And you know, and I looked at it all and thought, well, it's all straightforward if you know what it's meant to do. So John did a bit of research on the kit that went into it. We got a bit of paperwork on the motors and how they work and how you rewind the wires and so on. And I then got a hold of all the spring clips we need to replace the ones that they just broke. I mean, they snapped off. And it's really irritating because, you know, half a sunroof is not a sunroof at all.
No.
Fortunately, the weather was kind and there was no rain when the roof was stuck.
Yeah.
But you know, so we spent a couple of weekends, you know, dismantling it, working it all out, rewinding it all, getting it all to work again, and so we were able to do this. And, you know, we should have done a YouTube video of it, because I'm sure others have had similar problems. And
sure.
We just say to ourselves, we had to get a man to come and do this. You know, he's going to be here for.
He's going to be scratching his head as we've done, and it took us about an hour and a half to work out
how to access the motors,
this mechanism, how it all works. And if you're paying a guy, then he's going to go through the same process then he's going to come to the same conclusion as we came to.
Yeah.
And
then he's got to start.
And he's got to start.
But yeah, that would, you know, what I think we probably saved ourselves. I bet it'd be over 1,000 to actually put it right.
Yeah.
You know? So I think, you know, I said little things. That was a big thing, but because we had the Windy with a sliding sunroof, we kind of had sliding sunroof issues before.
Right. Yes.
And that's even more complicated to sort out. So, but you know, by and large, you know, our attention to, not to be stupid about it, but the attention to keeping the boat looking how we both want it to look, you know, and rubbing along together with our families, you know, and just trying to be relaxed about it. Don't try and become too controlling about it, you know, and hopefully between us we've sort of found a balance that keeps everybody reasonably comfortable. You know,
we've found little improvements that we wanted to do. Is like, I think the standard Princess hot water installation is the little blow off valve for the calorifier drains into the bilge, and I don't like wet bilges.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
I like a dry bilge. So we worked out a system on how to redirect that pipe into another pipe.
Yeah.
So if there's any water
blowing off, it blows overboard.
Yeah.
And blows into the
out,
bilge.
not into bilge. And I noticed on the Princess owner's site a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy who said, "Oh, I got this boat and it's got wet bilges," and we know exactly why he's got wet bilges, because that's what's happened.
So I suppose one of the crucial questions then is, how do you work out who gets to use the boat when?
We have a business meeting at the beginning of the year to say, are there any particular weekends that you need to be doing something or not? Because we got families who, you know, live away from us, who might, you know, my children both live in London. My son loves to come down, and if he does come down, he'd quite like to go on the boat.
Of course.
But we have two things. We have a little calendar. We kind of, you know, mark up when you might want to use the boat.
Okay.
So we have a bit of that to try and avoid it.
And then
we have the budget. Then we have the budget sheet,
right?
which is basically what we do.
Let him zoom in, sir.
Go on. Then he's going to try and.
There we go. That's what that looks like.
So with this, we're marking on who's used it on what day, how many hours the engines have run.
Yeah.
Any fuel that's been put in, and because we have computers on this boat, we can actually do how much fuel was used for the trip.
Okay.
So at the end of the year then, so at Christmas, during the Christmas holiday, I might then take all this, I put it on a spreadsheet at home, and then we work out whether there's a balancing payment due from one to the other. Because if John's used it, let's say 40 hours, and I've only used it 30 hours.
Yeah.
I get the phone call.
The bank the bank account is 50-50, so everything's paid for out the bank account.
Right.
But if John's done, you know, a 10-hour trip to the Channel Islands and back, which makes his 10 hours use more, then of course it's a bit of a you know, a divvy back to just square the books for each year. So we try and do that every year.
Yeah.
But we also have a column that's both when we're both using it together. So and it's only a simple recording of, you know, how many hours the boat does on what trip and where you went.
And you can work out who's giving it a bit of welly and who's not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough.
Yeah, who drives at 30 knots and who drives at 23 knots, you know? No, we don't have an issue on that at all. But
and sometimes, you know, when you're driving along and you need to find out what these switches are, because you've got lights and things, and on the dial we've made up a little diagram of what these switches indicate.
Okay.
Like quick reference.
Yeah.
Like so we do that, and then on here, those are our anchor colours, anchor chain colours. And we've got here on the right hand side how many seconds per. Is it per 5 meters? Is it? I've got my glasses on.
Yeah, so it's 5 meters. Yeah, so you know how many seconds. If you press the button to let the anchor out, if you hold it for 10 seconds, you've let out approximately 10 meters or whatever it might be.
Yeah, understood.
Because we don't have a chain counter because they're 350 quid.
when you're standing here, you can't, because the bow goes up, you can't quite see the colours that are coming out of the anchor locker.
Right. Yeah.
Chain locker. So if you do it by seconds. And you know, you get your watch right. Okay, go.
John, I don't do this.
So is it then basically every other weekend, unless you've got something that you pre-booked where it's okay, it's my birthday that weekend, and I know that's normally your weekend, but I'm going to have it that weekend, and then the other person gets it for 2 weekends, something like that.
The chance are, the theory that we have is that you can't use a boat every weekend, which you're probably a classic. You will not be able to use it every weekend, no matter what you try and do.
Completely.
And so on that basis, then there must be an opportunity that someone else can use it.
Yeah.
And the chances are that your weekends that you're booked to do something, the other person isn't, or vice versa.
Right.
It's rare that the boat's unused.
Yeah.
And part of the theory is that we think a boat is better being used than not being used.
Couldn't agree more.
So, you know, the fact that it does get used is really great, because it means that we get our hourly rate per year is.
we're not precious. We're not precious about it. If Chris came to me and says, "Oh, John, it was your turn to use the boat this weekend, but I've got such and such a friend coming down. Do you mind if I take that weekend that you were due to have it?" And by and large, we always agree. And sometimes what we'll do, which we haven't mentioned, is
John might take it somewhere.
I might take it up to Lymington or Yarmouth or Weymouth or wherever on a Tuesday, and myself and Michelle will be, you know, on the boat for the tail end of the week.
Yeah.
And then Chris will come up on a Friday afternoon, Friday evening
in the car.
And then I drive his car back home, and then he's got it for the weekend, and then he drives the boat home.
Brilliant.
So it
we
works.
try and plan little things like that to make it a bit more efficient, because again, the boat's the one using all the fuel getting to and from. But if we want a weekend in the Solent, or weekend, we've even done it at Dartmouth. You know, John will take it at Dartmouth. I'll drive to Kingswear, swap over.
Yeah.
You know, so the boat doesn't come back, but we just use the car to get ourselves. The other advantage is that I'm still working and John isn't, so John gets to use it whenever he likes.
Right.
And I get weekends.
Well, Hen's going out on Tuesday because it was a nice day, and I thought it was nice to go out for a spin and bring her back in and fill her up with diesel ready for our trip later on.
Yeah. So where is the furthest that you've been on the boat?
Good question.
St Catherine's Dock, I think.
I think so, yes. That was this summer.
That was this summer, yeah.
Right.
May this year.
Up on the River Thames.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we did a trip from here. We left here. John, we had. It was my sort of it was my lockdown passage planning. You know what we're going to you know what we're going to do. You know, when
it was a bucket listy sort of thing, wasn't it?
When we were all sitting around at Christmas in lockdown, I was thinking, what are we going to do with the boat this year? And we clearly were not likely to go abroad. So what are we going to do? And I thought it would be quite nice to do a cruise somewhere in the UK. What haven't I ever done? Well, I've never done that. So I set about planning a trip with John and a couple of other friends going up and another couple of friends coming back, and we went basically Exmouth, Yarmouth in the Solent, because we got a bit windbound on the first couple of days. Stayed at Gosport, which is a interesting place.
Hassler Marina, I think it was. Hassler Marina. Yes.
And then from Gosport we then had a long leg to Ramsgate. That is a long leg. And interestingly, for our point of view, we're so lucky in the West Country here. Our bit of coastline from Exmouth to Falmouth is fantastic. When you get past the Isle of Wight, there's not a lot.
No, it's true enough.
There's not a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a long leg between each of the Brightons, the where is it? What's the next one? Can't remember what it is.
Eastbourne.
Eastbourne, that's right. Eastbourne, and then Ramsgate.
Yeah.
You know, and then going round the corner, went from Ramsgate round into Chatham, so up the Medway to Chatham Dockyard, which is a really good trip to do. Long way up, mind you.
It's quite a narrow marina
very
entrance,
small dock,
I have to say, and you're not given much tolerance to have a decent boat speed, so you've got steerage, and to then stop the boat so you don't bump into the lock gates in front of you. So that was quite challenging.
Then out of Chatham, then up the Thames, and that's a good 6-hour trip up the Thames. Really, you know, you catch the tide going up. And it really interesting. It's a real worthwhile trip to do, because you just see everything. And you catch the tide up, and you're doing, you know, we did about 6 or 7 knots going up there at displacement speed, up to St Catherine. Before we got to St Catherine, they weren't ready to lock us in, so we then went on up
Vauxhall Bridge,
up to Vauxhall to see the MI5 headquarters, House of Parliament. So
brilliant.
The boat outside the House of Parliament.
It's lovely having a look at those buildings from the water.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And then back down again into St Catherine's, and bizarrely or coincidentally, we were in the lock going to St Catherine's, and this lady was walking across the dock bridge there before they opened it for the let us through, and she said to her, "Oh, we used to have a boat like that." And then she walked around the boat and said, "Oh, that was our boat." So we met the previous owner to this boat in St Catherine's Dock.
Brilliant.
So we spent 3 days up there. We had all our families come and join us. We had some good nights out in the pubs and restaurants around St Catherine's, and sat through one of those May storms that came through. It was just horrific. And then we then took the boat back down the Thames, went across to West Mersey in Essex, which is quite a long way out. Dropped a friend off who lived there, and then from there we went back across the Thames estuary. Quite an extraordinary place to navigate across. There is no water in the Thames estuary. It's 45 miles wide, but we're in the middle of the Thames estuary, and there's about 1.5 meters of water.
Wow.
Think, wow, this is a bit scary.
Yeah.
So navigation, chart plotter does its stuff, but it's history. That's not the current.
No, absolutely.
Sandbag, so you are having a little bit of a sort of a thought process. Got back to Ramsgate, refueled, and then we had another blow where we were on the pond. There was 45 knots of wind blowing the boat off the pond, and it was just really rough.
Yeah.
And so you used every line on the boat to
tie the
brace
boat
her up.
Properly, and then coming back from Ramsgate, it was relatively calm from Ramsgate towards Dover, Dungeness, but round Dungeness we were much into the the westerly winds coming up the channel, still blowing quite strong, and quite a rough trip, all things being equal. But what I was really impressed with, this boat is capable boat for doing trips where it gets a bit rough.
Yeah.
It was very dry, we had no water inside, the wipers worked well, the boat rides high enough out of the troughs. Yes, you get spray, you get all the things you normally get when you're going at 18, 20, 24 knots, whatever it might be, but felt really safe. And perform. And the trip from Ramsgate back to Lymington, we tried to go into Brighton. We thought we'd had enough of it. We thought we'd go for a cup of tea at Brighton and just calm down and just relax. But they said we're full and there was no room for us.
Right.
So we had to go back out again in sort of
oh no.
And made our way to Lymington and tied up at Lymington town that night and went for a nice curry. You forget.
Yeah.
You forget you've had 8 hours on the water, but we spent. We were full at Ramsgate, but we needed to fill up again in Yarmouth the following day. We used an awful lot of fuel coming back that day.
Yeah, it is that sort of weather. It does take
it seems to suck up more than you want, doesn't it?
It's not an efficient boat to speed and position.
But that's a long trip. But John's taken it to Channel Islands.
I've been to Channel Islands a couple of times in this one and in previous boats. And this year we went at the end of July when the conditions were very benign. And as I said, we go across and say hello to the Channel Light vessel, and then crack on down to St Peter Port. This year, because of COVID and there weren't very many visitors, we didn't go into Victoria Marina. We just stayed on the outside pontoons, which was fine. And then the following day, they had to get all our COVID wrist bands and a sticker to go on the boat and everything. But that allowed us to go up to Alderney without having to check our boat and our status again. And then we stayed in Alderney for a couple of nights, and then made our way from Alderney to Weymouth. And again, if the seas were so flat, we just put the throttles down and put on autopilot, and that was absolutely fine. And the AIS system kept us on watch with the ships in the shipping lane.
Perfect.
And then a night in Weymouth and back home the following day. So that was a lovely trip, beautiful trip. Yeah.
So how many hours a year do you reckon you put on it between you?
I reckon it's probably about 80 to 90 hours.
Yeah, and its average is about 80 or 90. I think one year we did 100 and something, and other years we've done, I think last year particularly though, we did
that was a COVID year, wasn't it?
60 or 70.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think it seems to be about 100 hours, and that's like all these things on a sailing boat. You're doing many more hours at sea, but here we do in an hour and a half we can be in Salcombe or or Ditcham in an hour. You know what I mean? So it's not many hours running to be somewhere very different from here. But yeah, I think we try and sort of keep a good record of our fuel consumption, just to see where we're going with this and what we're doing, just to try and find that sweet spot, isn't it? Which we all look for in our boats, don't we? What are we trying to achieve? And it's quite nice to know that we, if you think of it's whatever, it's 50 quid, it's probably 50 quid an hour, isn't it? It's something like that.
You can have a few depressing days ashore, and it's blowing old boots, it's raining, you're thinking, gosh, I've got this lovely boat moored up, I can't use it, and that's because the weather is so bad. But then you go out and have an absolutely fantastic either weekend or a lovely day out, and you forget all the bad days.
Completely.
Because that lovely day, what do you call it? You called it something in your latest article, didn't you?
I did. It's called Justification Day. Justification Day.
Exactly
what it is.
You want more than one, hopefully.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but there's always one that you get when you're sort of halfway through the season. And you think, I haven't used the boat much. The weather's been rubbish. I don't know if this is really worth it. And then you get one day and you go, I don't care.
Justification Day. I remember reading that. I thought,
we all look for that. We've had some cracking times doing very little. And that's the beauty of boating, isn't it?
Completely.
You can do so little
Yeah.
and enjoy, have such fun. And you say you've only got to meet a friend, and suddenly it's a completely different dynamic, isn't it?
Totally.
And for me, boating is, it's a good escape from the other things in life, like work.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to think about work when you're on your boat.
Yeah.
It must be hard for you when you're trying to combine the two. It must be really
It is
hard.
a bit of a busman's holiday for sure. Yeah.
You're just trying, because you want to have the boat's for enjoying, and you want to enjoy it, don't you?
Yeah.
But having that kind of thought that, I've got to think about work now, or that email or whatever. And if you're working from home or being self-employed is very different from going to the office and saying, right, I'm off now, thank you very much, and I'll see you on Monday.
Exactly.
We were, as young lads, we didn't know each other, but as young lads, we were brought up on the water because both our parents had boats. Your parents had a boat here on the
River Exe, yeah.
My parents basically had various motorboats in Weymouth, and that's before they had the marina. That's how I learned how to row, how to start a seagull outboard engine, and
how to throw away the motor start.
Yeah. And how to nudge the bow into the side because it doesn't have reverse gear or whatever. But you learn all these things, and you pick up some good points, and you try and forget the bad points.
Yeah.
But yeah, boating's been in my blood since I was about 5 or 6, really.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was a retired naval officer, so everything had to be shipshape on his boat because he had a little silhouette.
Right.
In Parkston.
Yeah.
He was a member of Parkston Yacht Club, and everything had its place. And if you didn't put it back, you were told off.
Which is where John gets his
OCD from. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, why is that living there? Doesn't do that.
So the very last question.
Yeah.
What's next?
What's next? Well,
that's a good question. Isn't it?
That is a very good question. What's next? I think we're slightly restricted in terms of where we are right here, because
we're probably about as big as we can get.
You are about the biggest boat in the marina, it has to be said.
Yes.
That's very deliberate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a reason.
Yeah.
And so there is that limitation. So if we went slightly bigger, which would be quite nice, then we would be looking to keep her at another location, maybe at Nos or something like that. But that's not going to be for a year or two.
Yeah.
But
it is.
We're really
really keen on this one.
This ticks a lot of boxes, really.
Yeah. We do talk about. I mean, I think I don't want to make any particular adverts for this, but we've had Sunseekers, we've had a Windy, and we've had a Princess, and as an accomplished cruising stroke user boat, the Princess I think is pretty well ironed out all the things that you would probably think of yourself to iron out, and this boat has been exemplary in that sense.
Yeah.
And living on it for 10 days doing a lot of cruising, I couldn't find anything that you'd want to change or make better. It was big enough for 4 blokes to live on without getting too crowded.
Yeah.
It was comfortable in that we could cook, we could keep ourselves warm, we could sit around and chat without being on top of each other.
Yeah.
You've got space for people to be away from you if you want to be away from you. You can carry a dinghy, you can carry an outboard.
Yeah. And more importantly, or as importantly, if Chris or I, and I have done it and you've done it, if you wanted to go out and use the boat on your own,
it's still doable.
It's still doable because we've got fixed lines on the pontoons, and the boat is manageable with one person. Even coming into Torquay, for example, I would ring the harbour. Is there a space? Yes, there is. Is it port side 2, starboard side 2? So we have that discussion. So out in the bay, I would line up all the lines, bow and stern, put the fenders out in readiness, and get them ready, and come up alongside, and throw the lines off, tie them up, come in, flip the bow in, tie the bow in. So it can be done.
It's very user. So the next boat obviously would be a bigger boat, I guess, is what the question is, isn't it? Always.
Yes, always.
But how big do you go? And
I would like a V52.
Right.
Well, there you go.
He's committed.
That's set the budget.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want a flybridge.
All right.
And the simple reason is they do look quite nice, and it's probably quite nice driving along, up there. But in reality, in this country, from my point of view, a big opening aperture like this, for me, is better than a flybridge.
Yeah.
The other thing is, going back to this boat and singing the praises of this boat, it's small enough to sort of creep around, because it's got outdrive. You can you can trim up if necessary, you can sneak up to places and so on. It's small enough to sort of go in all the little interesting places. As soon as you start getting into sort of 50-foot boats, you are much more limited on your marina berths.
Yep.
You probably do need to think about a marina berth often. You're so much more restricted in some of the little places you might go, which are further down in Cornwall. You know, we're thinking this weekend of sort of going down towards Plymouth, the Yelm or Foy or whatever.
Yeah.
Big rivers, but there's also some small places like Mevagissey and Looe and other places which we might want to sort of think about going into. So the size is a determining factor. As John says, you know, we're very lucky to have this berth in here. It works well for us. John lives in Exmouth, so you know it's a bit like you when the boat's nearer, you use it more.
Of course.
If you had to get in the car and drive 2 hours, how much would you really do? You know?
Yeah,
So
it's true.
The simple reason, I've said this to a number of people who've talked about boats, or keep it on a mooring out in the river, and I said the more barriers there are to use the boat, the less you'll use it.
Completely.
It's a simple fact.
Yeah. If I couldn't put a boat on the marina, I wouldn't bother, personally.
I think
I know people do, and it works well for them, and that's fine. I'm not knocking it.
Not your thing, yeah.
I want to be able to walk down, step on. I want to be able to wash it with a hose.
Yes, that's right.
And I want to be able to go down with friends who are not into boating and don't want to get into a little dinghy and row out and clamber onto it and step on and step off. And I think if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't bother, personally.
I think you're right. I'm absolutely right. And we're very lucky to have this one here. You know, if we go bigger, we'd have to think about taking it somewhere else, which then starts introducing the barriers to it all.
Understood completely.
And so this probably is our ultimate compromise. You know, the money's not stupid between two of us. The berth isn't stupid between two of us. The usage is...
It's all manageable.
It all feels like you're not busting up to use it, you know?
There's no guilt of not using it for the weekend.
Yeah.
Because if you have huge money tied up in a boat, I think, and you're paying, you know, a lot of money for the boat, for all the facilities it's got, etc., and you're not using it, then that would be a frustration.
Yeah.
So it's trying to find that perfect balance.
I think you've got it pretty much spot on with this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we like to think we've done okay.
Yeah.
You know, we've worked hard to sort of get to this position, and you know, it's not without a few people saying, particularly wives, you know, why exactly do you want to spend that on that boat?
Yeah.
So you have to sort of take them to the boat show, don't you, and say, wouldn't it be nice if we had a boat like this one day, you know? Secretly, John's busy trying to negotiate to buy one. You know? But I think, you know, like John, I think of another Princess, a V-something, a V48 or 52 or whatever it is. I mean, that would be a nice idea. You know, it's a bit bigger, a bit more luxurious, a bit newer. You know, there's a lot to be said for it, but... To be fair, I'm not fed up with this one yet. I'm very happy with this one as an easy, particularly while I'm still working. It's you know, I don't feel guilty about not using it, but I love using it. And you know, this working from the boat idea is worked. I'm going to think about getting some some extra Wi-Fi so you know, if I have got my laptop, you know, I don't just rely on my phone. I've got a bit more access to the email.
You have to mute the seagull noise though.
And it's a sound effect. Yeah, exactly.
I got caught out once, not badly, but caught out because the bloody steam train hooted at Darwin. Chris, where are you? You know, it's sort of like
fantastic.
It's sort of classic sound that everyone would recognise.
Yeah,
it's
brilliant.
Yeah, we've sort of come together, and I think, you know, we wouldn't say sharing is for everybody. You do need to find your sharing partner, and that, as I say, that can work really well. It's worked well for us, you know, because
if it didn't, we wouldn't have this boat.
No, absolutely.
We started in the same place, you know, and having sort of, you know, worried about these things, you know, you can't. Boats are worry anyway, isn't it?
Of course.
You know, if it's your, you know, and you do well with yours, it's sort of try and fit it in with everything else. You've got money to spend, and you're always thinking, I've just spent £2,000 on that. What you know? And whereas I say, well, I've only spent £1,000 on it.
Exactly,
So,
everything's half.
And that makes, you know, doing big jobs, you know, suddenly becomes manageable, which you might struggle to do yourself. I'm not saying you would if, you know, there's plenty of money, but, you know, if you want to have a boat that's kept reasonably nice, you do have to keep investing in it, don't you? And
undoubtedly.
And our plan is that we might well upgrade. I've got a great hankering for a boat in the Med because my parents ultimately retired and took the boat that we had here through the canals of France into the Med, and then ended up in Mallorca where they bought an apartment on the water, and we kind of spent a lot of our summers out there. And so, you know, I know what Med boating's all about, and it is very delicious.
Yes, of course.
But you've got to live down there. You can't, you know, travelling at weekends or whatever is not quite.
It's a barrier, isn't it?
Well, I would do it when I'm retired, I think.
Yeah.
So we may end up with another boat out there sometime, maybe.
Yeah.
If John fancies it or not.
Nice
I
idea.
find another partner.
Yeah, that's true. There's no reason why you can't have more, is there?
Well, there isn't. No, there's no winter boats, is there?
No. It's always something you can do.
Is that article in the back of the motor and yachting with the three? You know, what's your 3 boats? You had 5
Yeah.
million quid. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
We all look at that and think, well, I don't know if I'd have that one. I'd have this. You know? Our judgment of it all is very different, isn't it, to what we want out of a boat.
Yeah,
You know?
totally.
As I say, a lot of people have very small boats and have as much fun, if not more fun, than we might have on this boat. You know,
Completely.
because they're not. You know, here we're thinking, oh god, it's driving down to Dartmouth is 100 quid and back. You know,
Yeah.
sailing boat, you spent nothing, and it's very nice, and they've had as much fun as we have. So
Sure enough.
Not
everybody's
necessarily.
It's just getting the balance right, isn't it,
Yes,
for individuals?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we've
Cool.
always worked on the basis that, you know, with work, you know, we can actually go somewhere this weekend and
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
without thinking about it all week and then find the wind's in the wrong direction.
No, exactly, exactly. No, I'm with you on that one for sure, for sure. Brilliant. Well, that has been super, super interesting. And as I say, it's the first one we've done with 2 people sharing a boat, and I think that's a really interesting angle. And it certainly would open up. Well, it halves the price, doesn't it? For anybody
Correct.
thinking you're doing it, that's the real nub of it. It halves
Yeah.
the price, and I think that's fascinating. Cool. Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you, John.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
And yeah, enjoy the boating, and I hope it carries on working out equally well for you.
Thank you
the
very
plan.
much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Lovely.
Well, there we go. Let me know what you think of that one, and we'll look forward to catching you on another one of these very soon. Take care. Bye bye.